Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen from the ASEC community. My name is Chris Odongo. I am a board member at ASEC in charge of capacity building. We are delighted that you could take time to be able to join us this afternoon. We are looking forward to having a very amazing and engaging conversation around sustainability and around hubs, and talking about our challenges, and actually also talking about some of the pathways to the future. We are joined by Nekesa Were. I shall be doing an introduction to her a little bit later, but right now, I'd just like to know whether you can hear me. So if you can hear me, please chat me up on the side chat. Chat me up on the side chat if you can hear me. Let me know where you're joining us from and which particular enabler you are representing today. Let me hear which enabler you're representing today and where you're joining us from. So type that on the chat. Make sure to select all panelists and attendees. Make sure to select all panelists and attendees. The default for Zoom is to send the message to all panelists, but I want everyone to engage, so make sure to select all panelists and attendees. And then we shall be engaging you. At some point, we will be able to allow you to ask questions. For now, as the conversation begins and as the conversations unfolds, we'll ask you to put your questions in the Q&A button so that we can be able to see them there, but your comments, we'll invite you to put them in the chat button. So your comments go on the chat button, your questions go in the Q&A button. And right now, the comments I'd like to hear is where you're joining us from and which enabler you are representing. I can see several familiar names. And I'd say thank you very much for joining us. Now, as I said, my name is Chris Odongo. I'm a board member at ASEC. ASEC is the Association of Startup and SME Enablers in Kenya. We are bringing together all the people who work with entrepreneurs and enable entrepreneurs to succeed in terms of organizations. We are about 2 years old now, and we have been working within the Kenyan ecosystem. And this webinar is a series of webinars that we are organizing just to keep enablers informed, talking to each other, and learning from each other. We will be having another webinar next week with the coastal enablers. We had another webinar a few weeks back with the enablers from the Western region. It was an amazing conversation around innovation and supporting entrepreneurs in the creative sector. Today, our conversation really is about it's about sustainability of hubs, and we're going to looking at how can hubs begin to redefine conversations around sustainability, and how can hubs begin to redefine what sustainability is. And we're joined by Nekesa Were, who I'm going to introduce to you shortly, but I can see from the chat that we have MBM from Kitengela, Vincent from MHub, we have Wilfred from Nairobi, we have George Wayne from Nakuru Box, we have Ethiopia from Progress Welfare Association in Malindi, Mombasa Tech Bridge is here, Travis from Open Capital in Nairobi. So guys, we are going to really have a good conversation. I'm looking forward to it. Isabel Tenai, thank you very much. So that basically means that everything is working. Charles from Startup Grind. I always tell people that when I'm moderating these webinars that one of the things that you need to do is be actively participating, because before there were webinars, there were seminars and events, and we would take it as an opportunity to network and to connect with each other. And so part of our objective at ASEC is to promote collaboration amongst members. And so by coming to this event, we are going to be looking at ways for you to still connect with each other. Wilfred from Vilgro is here, so keep those chats coming. And as I said, please note that the Zoom default is to panelists, but I want you to be able to share your comments to all panelists and attendees. So just make sure you check on that and be able to click all panelists and attendees so that everyone can be able to get your comments. So comments go on the chat, questions and answers go in the Q&A tab. And today we are looking at sustainability of hubs. We're really going to look at, can we begin to redefine what sustainability is, but I don't want to preempt the conversation very much. Allow me to invite Nekesa to make a short presentation. Nekesa is a board member at AfriLabs, which is our Pan-African Association of Hubs, and Nekesa is the immediate former CEO at the iHub, and she has seen the organization, the iHub, go to greater heights. I have known Nekesa as very, very, very intelligent, wise, smart, and engaging. In the run-up to this particular webinar, we had an interesting debate around sustainability and hubs, but let me not spoil the surprise. Let me ask Nekesa to speak to us for a few minutes, and then we're going to have a chat. I am really looking forward to this. Karibu, Nekesa.
Thank you so much, Chris. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Let me know if I need to increase my volume or move to my headphones.
I can hear you.
Good. So I am very excited to see who's joined us. A lot of very familiar names from around Nairobi, from Nakuru, Mombasa as well. There's also Vincent from Malawi. I'm especially excited to see him here. So this conversation has attracted not just Kenyan Hubs, but also some of the wider AfriLabs network. And I do intend for it to be relevant for Hubs, not just Kenyan Hubs, but Hubs across the continent. My absolute pleasure, and thank you, ASEC, for inviting me to share my perspectives on sustainability of hubs. Like you have said rightly, I've been with the iHub for a while, and it's a question that we've grappled on for the longest time. And I wouldn't say that by the time I was leaving that we had finally figured it out. In fact, at our peak, which was probably about 2015, 2016, at our peak was 70% self-sustaining. And so even speaking for one of the oldest hubs in the continent, at least by the time I was leaving, I would be very honest and say that it's a question that we constantly ask ourselves, and trying to get to say sustainability is a struggle that even we were having back then. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and I hope everyone can now see it. Is that visible? Good, okay.
Yes, yes, it's visible.
Great, so as Chris has mentioned, I am Nekesa, been with the iHub for 10 years, 8 years as a staff member, 2 years as a member, and people question why I put member there in my, when I'm presenting myself, and it really is because if you're running a community like most hubs are, you get to a point where the only difference between members of your community and members of your staff is that you pay one group and you don't pay the other. But the kind of involvement that they have, that you expect from them, at least in my experience, really gave me a great perspective of hubs, how they run, both from the perspective of a community member and also from a staff member. And so those 2 years before I joined the iHub team, when I was an iHub member, for me were really critical in understanding the tech innovative and innovation ecosystem. I have been in different roles while at the iHub, most recently as managing director, which I left in March of this year. I then moved to AfriLabs as the interim executive director. I had sat on the AfriLabs board for 3 years, and so already knew the ins and outs of the operations there. I'm currently serving as executive director, as our executive director, Anna Ekeledo, who some of you on this call may know, is on maternity leave. Other than the work I do, I spend a lot of time in between how having all those people infuse innovation into how they work, and what does that look like. This is the way that hubs have worked since hubs were formed. We want to be innovative in how we welcome guests into our spaces. We want to be innovative in how we perform our programs. We want to be innovative in what tools we use to ensure great financial processes. The rest of the world is quickly coming around to that way of working, where innovation is not just about one department. It's about an entire organization. It's a wholesome solution. So that presents an incredible opportunity for hubs that have been doing this for the longest time to begin to take that best practice and share it with other organizations. So that's one way that hubs could potentially partner with other organizations. Another way, which I love, was the idea of the white box, which I really hope that we see this coming out of ICT Authority again soon. I think they've been iterating what that is, but I loved that there was opportunity for different ecosystem members. There was opportunity for hubs. So let me backtrack for anyone that doesn't know what White Box is. So White Box was an initiative of the ICT Authority through which the ICT Authority curated different ecosystem players who would help support ideas coming in from innovators that the government could use primarily for its Big Four agenda. And so someone with a great idea around food security, for example, could apply to the White Box to get support, and ICT Authority, as the convening organization, would, dependent on the stage that idea or product was in, or what support it needed, redirect them to one of its members. And so, I mean, one of its partners. And so it had hub partners, for example. And so if the idea needed more incubation, they could, for example, send them to a hub. If they needed more support in their marketing, then they would send them to the marketing society, marketing association, what are they called, to help them figure that out. Or they would sell them to LSK if they needed more legal advice. And for me, that was the perfect example of shared value, where each organization came in with a mission. Hubs signed on knowing that they wanted to support innovators to be scalable to the point where government could begin to pay attention. The Law Society of Kenya, I would assume, was in it to ensure that right from the beginning of the development of a product, that organizations or startups began to incorporate the legal issues they needed to consider as they're building out their products. And so everyone came with it with what they brought to the table. And for me, it's a perfect example of shared value, a way that hubs can contribute to a bigger agenda. And so, Pauline, I hope that has answered your question.
Yes, thank you very much. I think those are very good answers. And indeed, there has been efforts right here in Kenya for government to actually engage with hubs on partnerships, and there are ongoing projects even to support entrepreneurs. I can see Jose Maria has said for her, I'm hoping it's a her, name is not very clear, but says that sustainability is really about development and trying to create a circular environment where there's a win-win on both factors and helping the community. And I can see that picture of just bringing different players together and just being able to fix what was not perfect, so that then there's a lot of collaboration and there's a lot of partnership, which in a sense is what Nekesa you shared about the new shared goal or the new perspective where we are coming together to actually then bring the best of both worlds. We want to make money and we want to still do social good, but we do it in a very collaborative fashion. I'm going to allow Vincent to speak. Vincent, one of my co-moderators has allowed you to be able to speak. So please share with us your thoughts around definitions of sustainability, or an example of what you are already doing at your hub that is related to what the conversation we are having. Please tell us your name and the name of your hub. Vincent.
Okay, thank you, Chris. I'm Vincent Kumwenda from mHub in Malawi. Thank you, Nekesa, for a very wonderful presentation. I've learned a lot from the presentation. Before I share my experience, I think having run mHub for the past 6 years, I just wanted to add two things, I think, to the question about opportunities. So number one, I think a lot of development partners across the continent are shifting their focus into more enterprise development related programming. So they're looking for partners to work with them in terms of moving more from traditional aid to something that is more supporting SMEs and enterprise development focused programming. So I think it's an opportunity for us as hubs to position ourselves in that space that we can easily work with them in partnership, but also in terms of consultancies that we can be able to offer value in supporting some of the communities that they work with, but also in some of the programming that they're doing. But what it means, I think, is for us as hubs to find a balance. And apart from just, I agree with what Nekesa said about just focusing on social good, because at the end of the day, they need value, whatever they're paying for. We need also to invest in capacity of the team that we have. So we need like proper business development consultants, we need proper financial management people, we need proper, if it's about IP or any other related topics that we would want to consult on, we need to spend more money. I think we're coming from a history of running hubs that are more focused on maybe community builders, just tech people, but not necessarily investing a lot more on business development and other related sectors. So I think it's also a balance that we need to do as hubs. Second, in terms of opportunities, I've seen a lot of more specialized hubs coming up. I think I can give an example of the Lawyers Hub in Kenya as well, and other hubs that are more focused maybe specifically on, could be renewable energy, could be just tech, could be even sports, and any other niche market that we can venture into as hubs. I know that most of us have been doing everything as a hub, but now I think that era is kind of ending now. We're more focused on specific niche markets that hubs can be able to do. What it means is that we can be specialized and we can be very, very good at what we do if we're just focusing on one area, and we can easily attract clients even in those areas that can be able to pay for the value that we're offering them. So I just wanted to add those two things, I think, to the opportunities that Nekesa already shared. As for us as MHub, we started around 2014 with the idea of supporting tech, emerging tech entrepreneurs in Malawi. But I think 6 months into the journey, we kind of faced our first sustainability challenge, because those who were giving us support, the donors who were supporting us, changed focus within the first 6 months. We know he was, I think, in 2015, 2014, they kind of changed focus in supporting hubs at that time. So it was a very big challenge for us to start looking for opportunities at that time. So we sat down and looked at what we have in-house. So we looked at the skills that we have, mostly tech skills. So over the years, we've kind of worked with the skills that we have, tech skills, to the extent that 50 to 60% of our budget now comes from our commercial activities that we do. So we're developing systems for organizations, companies, and individuals. For instance, right now we've been supporting election monitoring for the past 4 or 5 years. Every time we have an election in Malawi, they would come to us, we would develop systems and deploy them. So we've invested in a team of developers, we've invested in a team of consultants that are working on different consultancy areas, apart from maybe the 40% that we get from donors to run individual programs around enterprise development and all that. So that's a tip for other hubs, that I think you can leverage a little bit more of the skills that you have in-house. And what we've also done very well, I think, over the years is to differentiate between what we do as a hub and what the community is able to do as a community of MHub. So I think there should be very clear separation of what we're able to offer as MHub and what the community is able to offer. But in doing that, we're also able to offer value to the community by outsourcing some of the things that we do, so that they can keep paying membership, they can keep using the space, they can keep promoting our brand if we outsource some of the things. So if we find like a consultancy and we're not able to have offer all the value, we outsource to some of the members of the community. So those are some of the things that we've learned over the years. And I think it's been a very interesting journey for us. And we're also looking forward to learning from what other hubs have been doing in Kenya. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Vincent. I'm very delighted that you could actually join us all the way from Malawi. And this is the benefit of technology, that somebody can come in from all the way out there and share different conversations. Let me ask Wilfred to speak to us. Wilfred Njagi, you have had your hand raised for some time. So let me ask you to speak to us, Wilfred.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the organizers and the panelists Nekesa, that was a wonderful presentation. So piggybacking from what Vincent has said in terms of giving, our governments in Africa, I think they all need help in the way they think about SME interventions. Most of the time they tend to be misplaced, not because it's because they are ill-advised and they don't know better. For example, now there'll be a COVID stimulus package, tons of them coming from, like the World Bank, I think, is giving $50 billion to the African continent for an SME stimulus package. And we find that most of that money ends up either in entrepreneurs or and I have nothing against entrepreneurs, but it ends up in small time things that will not be sustainable beyond so the stimulus, the package come and then it will disappear and there'll be nothing left. And if we as the hubs, we know how best to deploy some of these or to advise some of these interventions. So both local and international interventions around SMEs, we tend not to be consulted. I think the only time there was an attempt to consult us was through the Ministry of Trade with the KIEP program. But other than that, most of these things are the decisions that would affect startups are made without our voice in the room. And one, we could be involved, and two, get paid to do so in terms of structuring that, whether we now look at how to structure that as short-term finance, mezzanine debt, things that are sustainable, that can be redeployed. Even a package that can, when it's gone to a startup after some exit or after payback, it can be redeployed, and we now start getting into this virtuous cycle of sustainability for ourselves and for the startups. So advising government on how to structure these instruments would be one. And in line with that, I think time is ripe to also think of a fund of funds where ASEC membership as a network can, with government support, have like a fund of funds, where a fund on call, where startups can call into that fund. These startups are members of our hubs. The same way we had a youth fund, women fund, or these other mismanaged funds, we should have one that is startup specific, managed by ASEC membership, and then the individual hubs could benefit one through maybe finder's fee, or if they're doing investment readiness or technical assistance to help these startups to uptake that funding, they get a small fee for that, right? And that also could be another element of sustainability. And the third one would be, my last comment is around market entry, because now we have a free trade area ratified for Africa. We also now have a Kenya-US free trade treaty in the works. And what that means is a lot of entries from external players within Africa and also outside, which is good. It's a two-way road, which means that those markets will also be open for our startups. So scalability should be easier. But when they come, they always need local context, and they often look for that advice in the wrong places. They might go to the big consulting firms, the big four, the PwCs of this world, while we as the hubs would have the more nuanced micro level data. And speaking from health, because we are a healthcare incubator, we've seen that a lot. When you talk of global health, what that essentially means is people sitting in the global north deciding what the entire world should deciding the fate of the entire world in matters of health. So we've seen people who want to do now things, if you want to do clinical trials in Kenya, you want to do things closer to the African market. We've seen people coming to us for market entry support. That can happen also in other sectors, agri, fintech, so that any new entrant here who needs real data on how to go up, because let's face it, if you want to test anything in Africa, Kenya is the laboratory. You have to prove it works in Kenya, and then from there you take it to West Africa and South Africa and the rest of the continent. We could position ourselves with that product and we become the first port of call for any global innovation that wants to enter this market, and then we get paid for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting ideas, Wilfred. Thank you very much. I think we have noted them, and
Chris,
there
can I
is.
respond to that just very briefly?
Yes, yes, please. And then Odesenya, we are coming to you. Yes, Nekesa.
So yeah, so first I want to plug my blog. I actually today just published a post on value of hubs, and it feels like you just read it because because I was speaking about hubs as a first port of call for a lot of people wanting to come into the countries and understand local context. That's a key value that we have as hubs. It's hard to monetize initially, but when you think about what are the questions that you always get when other Africans, when people from across the globe come into our hubs, that's something that we could package. So I definitely agree on hubs as a first port of call and that being value. I also agree on AfCFTA, the Continental Free Trade Area. Hubs need to begin positioning themselves as those one-stop shops for their startups and for other African startups for the kind of content and information that people need, again, for market access. And it's not that as a hub you have all the information, but again, this is in the power of networks. What can I do as a hub, and who are my HR, my legal, my IP, my e-commerce networks that I can pull in to be able to answer the questions that startups and small businesses need when they scale into my country. On a fund for hubs, I totally agree. And for startups. And there was someone that had an idea for a tech circle, and I don't know what happened with that. If that's happening, it would be great for us to begin to support that. If not, then maybe that's something for ASEC to consider. I think circle may be a way to go. So thank you.
All right, okay, good. Amazing ideas coming up here, and we at the ASEC team are picking up some of them, and we'll be looking at how to move them forward. Odesanya, are you ready to talk? I'm going to allow you to talk. You may unmute yourself. Please remember to tell us where you're joining us from and which hub you're representing, even as you make your comments. Odesanya, if you're ready to talk, if you unmute yourself, I'll let you talk. In the meantime, I can see that Beatrice said that one, she appreciates the new information that has been coming in. They have recently started their Nakuru box as a hub, and they are grateful that they are learning something. Beatrice, thank you very much. We are here to help all hubs become sustainable and to grow. And yes, this is just a knowledge exchange forum where we are sharing different ideas and different conversations. Odesanya, are you ready to speak? I'm not seeing you unmuting. Okay, so Desanya is not yet ready. We'll come back to that. So let me ask us to talk a little bit about, and I can see the conversation has really just been sort of mixed up, data here, skills there, sustainability there. But specifically, let me talk. Let me hear what. Okay, Odesanya, you're here.
Yeah.
Okay, please go ahead.
All right. I'm speaking from Nigeria. And you said I should identify the hub that I'm representing.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't know much about that because somebody kind of linked me to this forum. So I think I should be. I think I would like to be enlightened on the hub that I can join or that I can speak from. But my question is, it is no doubt that SMEs, are or should be the live wire or the live hub of a sustainable economy. What is the organization doing, or what is the role of the organization to make the SMEs thrive, globally or sectionally? That's my question. I don't know whether you understand that, please.
Definitely, we understand that, Odesanya. Thank you very much. We understand that, and we are an organization that supports people who work with SMEs. So we are not working directly with SMEs, but we are working with organizations that support SMEs. And our confidence is that when those organizations who are working directly with SMEs are empowered, then they will be able to support the SMEs better. Because a lot of times, nobody looks at the consultant, the hub, the association, or the person who is working with SMEs. And so we are here as people who are working with SMEs, and we're trying to share knowledge and experience and exchange ideas on how we can be able to better work with SMEs. So thank you very much for joining us. And yeah, we shall continue with the conversation. Martin Olo says, will there be recording out afterwards? Yes, Martin, there's going to be a recording. We're going to post it on our social media, and you can be able to just engage with us. What we'd like to hear is, what is your experience around hub sustainability? Particularly right now, the conversation I'd like about is, Nekesa talked about new rules of engagement, talked about partnerships, talked about social good, talked about redefinition. Nekesa, I don't know whether you can share that screen for that quote that you gave us, because I'd like to hear what members have to say about that, especially in view of the fact that it is the way forward in terms of, it's a proposed way forward in terms of thinking about the future. What are your comments as members of different hubs? Have you seen this in action, and do you think it's something that is valid? You know, are we dreaming, or can we actually be able to achieve a new state of collaboration and partnership, and beginning to move away from just saying we are here for social good to a place where we can begin to say we have social good, and we have consultancies, and we have direct support that is actually making us money. I'd like to hear what your experiences are, and I'd like to hear what's on the ground. So if we can talk about that, it would be nice. Nakuru Box, Beatrice had said that as an organization, they've been getting revenue through consultation, and they've talked about the ability for them to be able to sell their data, or to be able to capitalize on their data to be able to make an income. So I don't know whether there are comments from our participants around those areas. If there are comments, I'd really like you to lift your hand up so that would allow you to be able to talk, or please type them on the chat and we can then talk about it. There's a question here. If the resource mobilization through selling of data will be actualized, what are some key resource areas that would be there for catalyzing innovation and investment of these funds? Nekesa, if we could be able to realize resource mobilizations, what are the key resource areas that will be catalyzing for the investment of these funds? Is there any answer to that question?
Sorry, please say that if we're able to mobilize funds.
So let's say that we've succeeded in selling the data, okay, and we have made money. Mm-hmm. Okay. Do we want to go and use this money to catalyze innovation and reinvest these funds? And what are the options that exist for that? So we are basically talking about hubs are sustainable, they're awash with cash. What do they do with the money?
Now, we can only pray that you make the right decision. So hubs are not all set up the same. There's some that are set up primarily as consulting arms. I came to learn this fairly recently. They're set up as consulting outfits that have a hub as part of what they do for their community. There's some hubs that are set up as for-profits. There's some hubs that are set up as not-for-profits. Yeah, and for me, how you're set up and what how you work would determine what you do with that money. For a lot of hubs, they're set up as non-profits, which means that money would plug back into the work that they do. It might plug into an investment fund. Maybe they've been working towards being able to invest in their own startups. It might plug back into a facelift for their space. Maybe they've changed their business model, and their business model now needs for them to have more community space, and so that might be something that they want to fund. It might plug into being able to run programs on their own without necessarily needing to partner with other people. So incubation programs, accelerator programs. Maybe they've been wanting to focus on an accelerator on goodness knows what that no one is able to fund. That's an opportunity to do it for yourself. So the more money you have in hand that you're able to plug into your organization, the more you're able to align with your mission. And so what's the mission of the organization, and what is it you're looking out to do? And for me, that would be where to plug your funds.
Right. So, Nekesa, this conversation around aligning social and economic missions, would you have examples of where it is in action?
So there's one example that I really like. Let me see if I can, I had it somewhere. Let me see if I can pull it up.
Okay.
So this is an unlikely union between HBO, who's behind Game of Thrones, and the International Rescue Committee, which I guess a lot of us associate that with the Red Cross.
Yeah.
And so HBO is activating what they're calling a Legion of Game of Thrones funds to support a campaign called the Realm to the Rescue campaign. And so in partnership with International Rescue Committee, HBO is using the platform of its smash hit, Game of Thrones, to shine a light on the refugee crisis and to encourage involvement in its Rescue Has No Boundaries initiative.
Okay.
So I don't know what the exact agreement is, but supposing HBO is actually not giving the International Rescue Committee any funding, but they are working on something that makes sense for both of them. It is a mission perhaps of HBO's, and it's definitely a mission of the International Rescue Committee around the refugee crisis. So the common value there is wanting to support the refugees and wanting to address the refugee crisis. So for me, that's a classic example of if you put yourself in the shoes of either put yourself in the shoes of HBO or put yourself in the shoes of IRC. Who would you think of that you can partner with that shares the same social value that you share, and together with whom, in just undertaking that social mission, you also impact your bottom line, for example. So I can only imagine by just engaging this Game of Thrones fans that HBO is already gathering more fans, and what that leads to is more people, more eyeballs for their content. Yeah. And I can imagine that with IRC engage, I mean, who would have thought IRC and Game of Thrones? That's a whole conversation on its own, and is shifting eyeballs that wouldn't necessarily be focused on a refugee crisis towards a refugee crisis. So there is value for them. Money may not exchange hands. It's great if it is, because that's a real crisis. But even if there wasn't, for me, there's value for both of those already. Another one that I really like is Safaricom's M-Pesa. I can't imagine. I mean, I can't believe that I, Nekesa, I'm talking about M-Pesa in a conversation when everything that I say is around, can we move away from M-Pesa? But I think it's really a great example. I feel that M-Pesa was created for social impact, to bank the unbanked, for some form of financial inclusion. That was the aim. But in so doing, they married it with incredible, ridiculous economic progress, because they offered such a huge social good that people wanted to use it regardless what the associated fees were. And so for me, that's a classic example of, as a hub, again, by all means, talk about your social good. But what else do you package it with? Or how else do you package it so that people say, you know what, that thing that we even previously didn't know how to express, that thing, so that feeling that this hub gives entrepreneurs, where the entrepreneurs don't have to worry about their rent or don't worry about investment, they just need to worry about building a product. That feeling that they've now packaged, I want to pick it off the shelf and give them money for it. Yeah, so that's the sweet spot.
So I'm going to attempt to paraphrase your statements into two things. Number one, there are organizations, corporate and non-corporate, that are within our space, and we as hubs can be able to find out what opportunities for collaborations exist, that we can work together to enhance our own sustainability, bring us an income. And in a sense, it will be amazing if our social good objective and angle can be partnered with another organization that maybe is not so much keen on social good, but they are really just about profits. And if you're talking about that, I remember the Total Fuel Company had this thing about Startup of the Year last year. And they were a non-profit company, but really they were looking at trying to stimulate entrepreneurship. And there are many organizations that are really trying to do that bit of stimulating entrepreneurship and engaging with audiences. And so they can be able to partner with hubs on that. Yeah. And that will be banks, it will be insurance companies, it will be large manufacturing companies. And I think even at some point, I saw, there was a competition that was sponsored by, I think, East African breweries, and were taking entrepreneurs to America to participate in a creative competition. And it didn't even come into the news, you know. I just bumped into that entrepreneur at somewhere, and they're talking about going to the States. So that's one part. The other part that I hear you say is, if I can put my thoughts together. So there's one which is the corporates, and then the other one is the value proposition, which really is to say, what is it that we as hubs are offering to entrepreneurs to an extent that, yes, it is targeted to, and we say startups can't afford, but what is it that we as hubs are offering to entrepreneurs at a level where those same startups can actually come and pay enough to actually be able to get us from non-profit to a level of profit. And on that, I'm reminded of organizations such as Equity Bank, and as you said rightly, Safaricom with M-Pesa, Faulu, the microfinance movement, that in a sense began by trying to meet a need at the bottom of the pyramid, but somehow were able to convert themselves because they were offering a unique value proposition that was meeting the needs of the, call them entrepreneurs, okay, at that point, and entrepreneurs were actually able to pay. So if I hear you saying that, that's really amazing. What will be your comment? Is that, am I hearing you right?
You are. I mean, the moment we figure out what our real value is, then we're onto the track for sustainability, because that's the hardest part. The hardest part is figuring out what you have that people want. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then once you figure that out, then next is, how do I package it in a way that people can use it? This is classic what we teach our startups. We teach them to define their market. We teach them to build for their users. We teach them to build a business model around their products. I mean, as Africans, yes, a lot of the innovation that we do is for social good. It's to address issues. It's to address challenges within our societies. And that's always a great starting point.
Yeah.
But we're only able to scale them. We only hear about the zebras or the unicorns when they become scalable and when they formed a business model to where they begin to attract attention. Now, we need to eat our own dog food as hubs. If this is what we're telling our startups to do, and we've been incredible at supporting them to do that, we need to be able to do that for ourselves. Okay. Yeah. And critical to that is to find the right partners to do it with and to package it well.
All right, very good. That's a very amazing discussion right there. Our participants, we do have 6 minutes to the end of this call, and I'd like to now begin to draw us to a close. Jose Maria says, World Bank published something in 2016 on the issue of sustainability, talking about the disconnection between goals and business plan structure to achieve those goals. The question is, can we begin to make a shift to boost the ecosystem? I think, Jose Maria, the answer is yes, and that's why we are here today talking about sustainability and talking about redefining these conversations away from the traditional, just trying to balance your donor and sort of thing mix, and coming to a place where we're saying, is there a new conversation that we can have Ladies and gentlemen, I'm drawing to a close, and I've been encouraging you to type your comments on the chat or put your questions in the Q&A button. But right now, as we draw to a close, what I'd like to hear is, what is your takeaway? What is the thing that you're taking away from this conversation? We've been here for 1.5 hours, and I would like to believe that you have stayed to the end because there was some value or some ideas that you are picking up. So what I'd like to hear is, what is your takeaway? What are some of the things you're picking up that you want to be able to apply back in your hub? If you'd like to speak on air, you may raise your hand. We'll unmute you and allow you to talk. Otherwise, if you can type for us your comments on the chat, we'll be able to appreciate them. Before I invite Nekesa to give us her closing remarks. Thank you very much, Jose Maria, and the other people who have been taking part. As I wait for people to lift their hands up and speak online, we are also asking you to give us feedback on, we're also asking you to give us feedback on our webinar. Please give us feedback on our webinar. We'd like to know whether it was useful. So there's a link that will come when you log out of this webinar. There's a link that will come. When that link opens up, please fill in the feedback form and tell us how you liked the webinar and how we can be able to improve it. The link is also typed there on your chat and is available for you to be able to fill us and tell us how we can improve the webinar. But right now, I'm just waiting for you guys to give us comments on what are some of the lessons you are picking from this conversation here today. What are you going to be able to do differently in your organization? Are you going to eat your dog food, or are you going to make a new kind of dog food? You know, preaching water, drinking wine, or you're going to now start preaching water and drinking water. I'd like to hear those comments. If there are no comments, I'm going to come back to Nekesa and ask Nekesa to give us her closing remarks. Nekesa, I hope you're ready with that. Please give us your closing remarks. We'd like to then end this webinar on time. Nekesa.
All right, great. First of all, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to have this conversation around the sustainability of hubs. Again, I hope that we together, Chris, have planted enough seeds that people will go back and interrogate their own models and their way of working and use some of the information here to personalize or to create frameworks for themselves, which for me was the intent. In closing, let's never underestimate the value that we bring to the table as hubs. I sound like a broken record now, but that social value is incredible, and we need to begin to harness it. There isn't any other type of organization that is able to be as quick, as nimble, as accommodating as hubs are, and we should use that to our advantage. Two, we should use the power of our community, and that again is in the kind of entrepreneurs that we house within our organizations. Let's leverage what they bring to the table to make it work for us. This is the way that communities work. It's not about just giving, but it's also about taking. So let's not be afraid to go to our community members and say, hey, what value do you offer that we can begin to collaboratively package and help our hub be sustainable? Hubs are connectors, and we spoke about this briefly in the conversation on the free trade area. Again, no organization is as best placed. If you think about the fact that, so within the AfriLabs network, there's 202 hubs, and this is just about a third or a quarter of the hubs across the continent. There's close to 700 hubs now that we know of. So hubs, there is no other kind of organization with that kind of coverage across the continent, with the kind of impact that we have, or the kind of authority that we speak with, that will be able to support organizations like the AU to implement a continental free trade area. Imagine 700 hubs sharing their content or sharing their data that allowed our startups in our individual countries or regions to be able to scale across the continent. How powerful would that be? And what an incredible resource would that be for the continent? Now imagine if you packaged it into something that we could actually sell to someone. Finally, the power of data. Think about what data you hold and how to and how to use it. Take time. It takes a while. Walk into your hub the next time you walk in, if your hub is open, and walk in as an innovator, walk in as a government official, and think through what kind of data you'd want to get from that hub that you likely have. And that probably would be the first step in figuring out the resource, the data that you hold that would be critical for other organizations. We know we have it. Someone said earlier on this call that the government hasn't come to us. We don't need government to come to us. We just need to unearth this data and be able to communicate it. And then government will come if they're coming. And if they don't, someone else will. And if they don't, we can still use the data for ourselves, which is why I say we need to be able to consume that data, use it, and then if possible, sell it. Either way, the data is extremely valuable. And then finally, let's not underestimate the opportunity for hubs to influence national agendas. Those of us that are involved in policy work, right now, I think ASEC is involved in the Startup Act. Let's not underestimate the value of us speaking out to ASEC and to other leaders about what we know for sure, because we hold the data, what we know are the requirements for hubs to thrive in our countries. Let's not underestimate the power that we hold to make that kind of difference. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nekesa, for those very elaborate remarks. For our participants, I apologize. The link that I shared for the feedback form is not working. We'll share shortly the proper link. The one that I shared is the backend link. I apologize. I will shortly share the front-end link. Multitasking on the computer here can be very interesting because, as you would guess, Odongo Primary School is also ongoing somewhere in this house. But yes, thank you very much for joining us and for coming to this webinar. As I said, my name is Chris Odongo. I am representing ASEC as a board member in charge of capacity building. ASEC is the Association of Startups and SME Enablers of Kenya, and we are primarily an organization that works with the intermediaries. So we don't work directly with entrepreneurs, we work with people who work with entrepreneurs. And so if you are working with entrepreneurs, and I'm sure most of the hubs that have joined this call are working with entrepreneurs, we invite you to join us as members so that we can be able to collectively achieve our objectives. Nekesa's conversations and comments around collaboration are really a lot about where and why we were formed. We want to collaborate, we want to share data, we want to share information, we want to build the capacity of our members. And this is one of the events that had been organized. Before COVID, this was supposed to be a physical event where different hubs are coming together to connect and talk about their challenges around sustainability and share insights. And this is the reason why the organization ASEC was formed. We have a policy role. We want to engage with government. We want to talk to government. We want to make government aware of what the challenges of supporting startups are. And in a sense, we want to bring the voice of the startup coach into the conversation. We want to bring the voice of the SME coach into the policy conversation so that it's not just the voice of the SME, the voice of the startup, and the voice of other stakeholders, but the voice of the person who works with them. In my work as a business coach, I have known that SMEs tell us business coaches the 360-degree truth of their business. Government is told one thing, banks are told another thing, investors are told another thing, but the business coach always gets the full 100% picture. And so that's why we want to talk about policy, because we are in a place where we can be able to talk that. And we need members, because it's not just our voice, it's the voice of our members that want to take to the policy table. And then we also want to talk to international parties, bring in conversations from across different parts of Africa. Today, we are very glad to be joined by Nekesa Wera, who is an active member in the Pan-African space of supporting hubs, and we also want to build the capacity of our members and want to empower our members to be able to actively do what they want to do. So if you're not a member of ASEC, please join ASEC. Our website is there. We typed it on the chat and we'll type it again. We'll send you details of how you can join ASEC in the email that will follow this webinar. Do not miss out on the chance to join ASEC and be part of this great organization. Next week, we have the coast sector, the coast enablers from the coastal region coming together to have a conversation around how to support entrepreneurs within that coastal region. Please look out at our social handles for that information, and we will be able to gladly host you. We are planning to have an annual conference later on in the year. So again, stay in touch with our social media handles and we'll tell you a little bit about that. Once again, I have been your host, Christopher Odongo. I'm a director at Wild International. We are one of the enablers based here in Nairobi, supporting entrepreneurs across Africa. We appreciate, as I said, leave us your comments on the chat button. When you end the webinar, an automatic link will open on the feedback. If you don't see that, please look out for it on your email. We'll send it to you. Otherwise, on behalf of the ASEC team, let me take this opportunity to thank you, Nekesa, very, very much for this wonderful presentation. For our participants, thank you very much for joining us. We really, really look forward to seeing you the next time. Do have a good evening. We're going to hang around for 2 minutes, just like they do in a normal webinar. You hang around for 2 minutes, greet people, talk to them. As I told you guys, it's an opportunity for networking. So hit us up on those comments. Don't send them to panelists only, send to all panelists and all attendees. Tell us what you learned, tell us what you picked up. If you want us to connect you with any one of the member attendees, just say so and we'll be able to do that. Thank you, Patrick from County 01. Yes, hit us up on those comments and let's hear what you are doing. We're going to hang out here. Nekesa, me and you can hang out and chat with each other as we try and engage with these attendees as they exit. It's like a real web seminar. When you're coming out, you greet people and you congratulate the presenter. And as I can see, they're congratulating you, Nekesa. You've been an amazing presenter and I'm really looking forward to having another webinar.
Yeah, if we were face to face, then I would have, I guess some people would have asked for my card.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'm more, reach me on Twitter at Nekesa. It's pretty simple. Or if you want to email me, nekesa@twere.co.ke. Is an easy way to contact me. I'm happy to talk more about sustainability, talk more about the value of hubs, talk more about the work of AfriLabs, talk more about my experience with iHub, because I understand that every day there's new hubs being launched or new pivots being made, and iHub went through its own fair share of pivots, and so I'm happy to have that conversation with anyone that's interested as well. Yeah, thank you for someone said something nice about my t-shirt. Thank you. I was hoping someone would notice.
Oh my goodness. And your host did not notice.
Imagine that, Chris.
Imagine that. I missed the opportunity of a lifetime. Anyway, it has been brought to my attention and looking at it, it is a nice t-shirt. Just tell me where you got it.
Who are they called? I should plug them. What's it called? The guys that do the... Oh my goodness. I promise that I will...
You'll find out.
It. Yeah, I will find out. I can't imagine that. That's such a shame. I forgot their name. Yeah, but they have lots of incredible t-shirts, very popular. Peperuka, thanks, Marcy. It's Peperuka.
Peperuka,
yeah,
okay.
You can get it on
good.
Peperuka.
All right, good. Amazing conversation, guys. Thank you very much. We really, really appreciate you guys coming. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week in the coastal one. Yeah, so guys, 2 minutes are up. This is going to be a hard stop. Guys need to go back to their workstations and work. I need to go back
towards the bedroom. I get a lift.
Me, I need to go and find out whether these people have done their homework.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye, guys. Have a good afternoon and a good evening. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.